This demo is based around overhead and payroll budgeting and is designed to give a brief overview of a robust and controlled budget workflow, as well as the power of rules and reporting. The system has two users. We're currently logged in as Finance, which has managerial approval of all cost center budgets and access to administration functions. There is also a second user called Holder, who has budget holder responsibilities for a group of cost centers. The budget is a three-phase process where the budget holder submits their numbers, the manager approves them, and then they are finalized to the budget. All of these processes, as well as the look and feel of the model, the layout, the colors, the fonts, are fully customizable to your requirements. Now, the best way to think of this budgeting model is from right to left. We set assumptions and can adjust budget parameters, then we complete our costs and payroll budgets. This data then enables us to generate reporting on our payroll, as well as automatically generate financial statements and perform analysis. We first set assumptions, in this case global, that is, applying to the whole organization. Assumptions can be set at a lower level, such as by cost center if desired, and these are used in calculations and reports. Here they're relating to payroll, but assumptions around costs, payments and the like can easily be added. Two things before we move on. In every report you'll see these PDF and Excel icons allowing easy export of whatever it is that you're currently viewing. You'll also see many of these drop downs, in this case by year or by version. These allow you to slice the data, viewing the assumptions for another year, for example. The version drop down in particular enables you to access different budget phases, forecasts and what-if scenarios, enabling you to take a copy of, say, the budget, tweak some assumptions, perhaps optimistically, and see the end results in your financial statements and other reports. We'll leave the rest to administration and start budgeting. Here we see all the groups of cost centers that we have responsibility for. Finance has a dashboard of all areas in Phase 2 responsibility. If you wish, we can have deadlines around the various phases and automated email alerts if these are not met. We can click into a costs budget here and view the numbers, in this case 0, but it is locked for us. We don't have responsibility for Phase 1. So to do the budgeting, we're going to need to log off and log back on as our budget holder user. Here we see that we don't have access to the administration functions, and when we go into the budget, we see only the areas that we hold responsibility for. Let's take a look at our costs budget. Here we see our overhead cost lines. We can view all of the cost centers in this group, or projects if applicable. We can expand or contract our time columns and key in numbers. We also have line-by-line commentary that will be visible throughout the process. Rather than zero-based budgeting, we can also copy in last year's actuals as a starting point and then continue to edit the numbers. Or we can set an entire quarter or an entire year at a stroke. This will spread the entered number across the lower items based on the existing profile. If I right-click on all months for this account, we can access Splasher, which gives us a variety of options, increasing or decreasing by percentages or absolute figures, or we can set a profile like another cost center, for example, particularly useful when we have a new cost center, a new product line, or anything else like that. We now feel that we've completed our budget, so we're going to submit it. As you can see, the budget is now locked for me, as responsibility is passed to finance. Taking a look now at payroll budget, we can see our payroll budgeting screen for this group of cost centers. This screen is for our waged employees. The various figures around shifts and overtime are fully customizable. If we enter into our salaried staff budget, we see a similar screen, but with different options that relate to salaried employees. At the top, we have our existing employees, likely imported from our payroll system. These are locked in this case, apart from end month and progression month, if you know that an employee is going to be leaving or moving up a pay scale. We can also view the allocation of each staff member across the cost centres in this group, which can be across cost centres as here, or wholly within one. Down below, we can add extra lines to key in more employees. We can set the number of FTE to either factor in part-time staff or quickly do multiple staff rather than setting them one by one. We can key in information such as the employee's name, when they're starting or finishing, if perhaps we're hiring a contractor, as well as their salary. Now, this employee has a pay grade, but we could easily change this to a direct salary if we wanted, or back to a pay grade, which automatically brings back the salary. If you know when a staff member will progress up a pay grade, you could key that in too. We'll leave all the rest, but at the end you can see that we can allocate this staff member across multiple cost centres. Finally, there's commentary for payroll. If you wished, this could be line by line as well. And that is all the information you need to provide. The system will do all of the calculations to take these figures into a phased payroll budget, with national insurance calculations and the like automatically performed for you. We now feel that we're ready to submit our payroll budget as well. So we submit it. And again, the budget is now locked. So we need to log off and come back in as the finance user. Since finance is responsible for phase 2, we can go to, say, the costs budget, review the figures, make any changes we want, and then submit to the final budget. We won't go through the full process, but let's assume that our budget has been completed. It's now at the end of the budget process, and here we can see on the finance dashboard that all of our phases have been completed. We now have a wide variety of reports to report on that budget, but the same can be used for forecasts and actuals. In terms of payroll, we have a number of ways of viewing our staff. Waged employees gives us a view of our wage staff by year, by version, and cost centre grouping. This report can be sorted on whatever field you would require. Allocations can also be viewed for each of these staff members. Salaried employees gives you the exact same view on salaried staff. And employee allocations gives us an overview of where your staff are allocated across cost centres within cost centre groups. The phased payroll by employee view enables you to view for any year, version, cost centre grouping, let's make this all locations, any of the calculated figures, total payable, or any of the figures that make it up, such as employer NI or pensions, as well as things like headcount. This can also be ordered by name. Phased payroll by location takes the same data but slices it differently, showing us the same range of values, but by each individual cost centre. Bring together all of this data and all of the calculations to automatically generate our financial statements, both for budgeting and forecasting, but also for our monthly actuals. Here we can see our P&L for any year, version, or cost centre grouping. We'll leave it on the whole organisation. We can view trends, spark lines, although in the case of this data they're not that interesting, and we can expand and contract rows. It's worth noting that these versions include the various budget phases, so a cost centre's budget holder could, for example, view the P&L for phase 1 as they key in their numbers to see the overall picture. Full security also means that individual users will only have these drop-downs populated with the areas relevant to them, but you still only have to create the one report. We can also provide impact or movement reports to compare P&L lines across different dimensions. Here we can choose different years, compare different versions. In this case, we'll look at our finalised budget against the empty actuals. We can choose a cost centre or cost centre grouping, easily see the variance. These reports can be configured however you like, so equally you could choose and compare to cost centers, for example. P&L, of course, in turn feeds the cash flow, where we could have rules and calculations around payment timings. And finally, the balance sheet, which can be configured in the same way. In our demo, we're simply tracking cash. The last reports to look at today are to show you a little bit of the art of the possible in terms of making data available to yourself and your users. This report represents some data that a user might be viewing, and each of these numbers, of course, is made up of individual transactions over that period. Now, the system can connect directly to your source systems and allow users to simply click on a number to view all of those transactions from the source system without having to separately log on to that system or come to you in finance and request that data. We've also created this report, which shows a simple ranking of the top 5 and bottom 5 cost centers, ordered by headcount or total payroll spend. Reports like this can be easily created to surface the information that's most useful to you, rather than simply displaying a long list of numbers. The last report to show you today is this transparency report. Here we have a tree structure of regions and countries, and if I switch on performance alerts, we can see that Asia is performing well against its budget. The problem with reports of this kind, of course, is that they may be concealing important information in the detail. And if I switch on transparency, we see that all is not well in Asia. In fact, 3 out of the 14 countries below it are not within the acceptable variance to the budget. And that quickly tells me to drill down into Asia and see that South Korea's very strong performance has offset weak performance in 3 other countries. What you then do with that information is of course up to you. But hopefully these last reports have helped illustrate how the system can intelligently surface data that matters to your decision making. That brings us to the end of the demo. Hopefully it's given you a flavour for the benefits that the system can bring, removing the problems of spreadsheets, adding user friendliness for end users, robustness and control, and making your data easily available for analysis and decision making. Thanks very much for your time today. If you have any further questions or would like to see a demo in more detail, please don't hesitate to get in touch.